E360 TV proudly presents Messages of Inspirational Stories, broadcasting and live streaming to millions of devices around the world, including Roku, and live streaming to Facebook Live. Also on Amazon Fire TV and to Twitch. Also Android TV and Periscope. Broadcasting to Apple TV and YouTube Live. Proudly brought to you by our host, Donna Guinois, producer and host, Mikayla Vidal, host and administrator, and Jim Grant, producer and host. Proudly brought to you by the 6minutewebinar.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Messages of Inspirational Stories. Mikayla, I'm super excited to be here today with you. Today we are talking about the young adults in our home, college age, after high school. And that it's a whole different world in and of itself.
Oh yeah, that's when your life is, getting started. That's when you have to figure everything out.
Right. And one of the things that with the economy the way it is, I've noticed is that a lot of young adults after high school are staying at home to go into their first and second year of college, maybe through community college because it's the classes are smaller and it's a little less expensive than the major universities. And then of course their credits will transfer over, which is, a great thing. It helps them be able to focus on, going to college, which is not an easy thing at all to, to study. And so many of the young people, of course, work a part-time job and go to school. I know that my own children do. My youngest daughter is studying to be a nurse in Ohio, and she works a full-time job. She works 12-hour shifts. And so right now her schedule is set. She said, I work and then the next day is school. And I work and I'm doing homework and the next day is school. And I work and I do homework and the next day is school. And then on her days off, she's just doing homework and trying to catch up with stuff around the house. And, unfortunately, it has to be that way. It is a lot. It is a lot. But it is a time that we can really, as parents, be there and, surround our young adults with that love and still nurture them. Maybe not the same way we do as when, they're really young.
They're little,
Yeah. And I miss those days. I'll be honest. I miss those crawl in my lap hugs,
Right. Oh, you have a major test today? Okay, come sit next to mommy. We'll watch a movie.
Exactly.
They'd probably be like, Mom, really? Could you imagine? That would be funny.
Right? Trying to cradle my 5'9" daughter. Yeah, that'd be fun.
She'd be like, Mom, what are you doing? That would be funny.
Right. But I think it's really important to understand that even though they're independent and they're going to school and we can no longer really control and set those boundaries because they're obviously of age. But I think that support is so needed and should not be overlooked.
Oh no, because that's probably, other than when they're little, of course they need you, but when they're, finally in the world and they're basically, on their own, but not on their own, that's when they're going to need you the most. That's when they're going to call you the most. That's when the real life lessons come into play. And
right.
That's when they're really going to need you, and where you can fully step in and be like, look, this is one way to do this. This is how I did it. This didn't work for me. Maybe you can try this way. And of course, how things were when you were a young adult is going to be different than, the time when they're a young adult. But, there are some very similar life lessons to be learned. There's
Right.
still jobs, bills, all that doesn't change. So I think the support is definitely needed, especially when they're deciding, if they should go to college or if they should stay at home, because I know there for a while they kind of face that pressure of where to go to college because everyone's going to a university, and
Right.
just letting them know that it's okay to start off at a community college or to stay at home, because sometimes living at home and going to college and working is the head start that they need because
Right.
financially, I mean, not everybody has that opportunity. And I wouldn't want my kids to start off, and owing a lot of money or anything like that. And I mean, the cost of everything these days is ridiculous.
It
Like
is.
even working a part-time job doesn't even cover it. So, I mean, that they definitely need it's a full-time support system that they need for
It
sure.
it is. It is. And the thing is, like, especially right now, um, we have a crazy throughout our country here in the United States.
Hmm.
Um, our rent is
Oh,
way out of kilter, right?
oh yeah, it's
So,
ridiculous.
mhm. So here in the valley, a studio apartment is going anywhere from $1,000 to $1,400 a month. We're talking
Mm-mm.
studio apartment, folks.
That's just one big old room.
Exactly. So
Oh my
how
gosh.
how in the world, can our young adults who are trying to better themselves and get an education, focus on their
Hmm.
career path, how are
Oh
they going to
yeah.
be able to afford that? And along with that is, of course, a car, and then you need to have a cell phone, and you need to have internet
Right.
and
All the
food
little
and
basic things. Right.
exactly. So, that is a time to, put in that support. And I know there's so many people out there who do that, but it's just something
Hmm.
that shouldn't be overlooked because
Right.
right now, I know when I was out of high school, I could afford my own place. And I worked a full
Hmm.
time job. I did go to college. Um, I didn't finish, but I was taking college courses. And, you know, I remember a one-bedroom apartment, one bedroom, one bath apartment was $350 a month.
That's awesome.
Well,
I'll
back
take that
then,
price.
it was still expensive, because of course
Oh my
wages were,
gosh.
it's
Different.
a wage ratio, right? So
Right.
it's still, and I had to pay my car payment, my insurance and electric and all of
Right.
those good things, right? But I mean, it's crazy how are we supposed to do that? So if we're lucky and say your children can, get a house and everybody pitches in, that's one way. But it's
Right.
also a lot of pressure. But if that's what they want to do, you know, we need to be in there and support them during that time.
Oh yeah. And I think the hardest part, because they are independent, and I think the hardest thing as a parent is kind of stepping back and let the consequences do the talking. Like, don't be like, you can't afford that, like let them learn because that's how they're going to learn. And even though, it's definitely hard because no one wants to see their child, going through a tough time or anything like
Right.
that, especially if, you kind of saw it coming or whatever it was. But I mean, sometimes just let the consequences do the talking because, they have to end up learning. And
Right.
sometimes that's how they learn. But
Right.
as long as they know that they have your support and they can come back home, whatever needs to happen, I mean, that's the most important thing.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. I know in my life, when my middle moved out, um, and she was gone for quite some time, and then ended up saying, "Mom, can I come home for a while?" And I'm like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, of course." And I'm trying to remember, but I'm not even sure how long she ended up, living back with me again. Probably close to a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fine. It was fine,
Right.
It gave her time to, kind of land on her feet and readjust,
Right.
if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the consequences, that's a big one. Learning to, as a parent, it is so difficult to sit back and keep our mouth shut, right?
Right.
And literally watch it fall
Right.
right at their feet. That is a difficult thing. But I think like we've talked about Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
starting at the age, of essentially one or before, and, motivating them and letting them know that there's that open communication.
Right.
That's what comes back into play.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, because then they feel comfortable, if they are in a situation, where they can't afford their rent, or, they get kicked out because they can't pay their bills, whatever it is, at least with that communication, they're more gonna lean on you to be like, what do I do? Can I come back home? Instead of, because some people don't have that support and they're trying to overwork, and
Right.
that's when other things can come in, like unhealthy ways can come into play of trying to figure everything out, because when, you're a young adult, if something happens or doesn't go as planned, it feels like everything's falling apart. And, if that's how you feel, internally, that's how it's going to seem no matter what's going on in your world. So
Right.
for sure, the communication, that's where it all comes to play. And
And,
that should be stressed so much.
exactly, because it doesn't matter actually what age, life is
Mhm.
going to hand us and kick us right square in the butt. And
Oh,
we're going
yeah.
to, something's going to happen, and we're all going to hit that, we were up here and we're going to come back down here for a little bit.
Right.
And
Hmm.
it's just part of life. And I think that's what, Mikayla, you and I are so much advocate, if you will,
Right.
about stressing that communication, leaving that open, motivating your children from a young age. And yes,
Hmm.
consequences happen. I would
Right.
always tell my children that for every action, there's a reaction. Remember that. What you reap, what you sow. And they
Right.
got so tired of hearing it. They got so tired of hearing it.
But now they understand.
Exactly, exactly. They do. They understand, and it's funny to have one of my children call me and ask me for advice, or and ask me, "Hey, mom, what's that recipe?" Right? And I'm like, "Okay." But that to me is one of the absolute most beautiful things, because again, there's that communication.
Hmm.
And life is busy for them. I know that they're super, super busy. Life is,
Right.
not as busy for me at my age. I'm a little more into the golden years, um, right? I'm good with that.
A little
Trust
break.
me.
Yeah. I'll get there eventually.
Right? Yeah, you got a few years ahead of you, darling.
I have a lot.
But it's when you see it, what we went through, and what our children have gone through. And I
Hmm.
know, just Mikayla, look at it this way. Look at the vast difference between when you were 17, or say
Hmm.
13, because your oldest is 13. Look at the
Right.
difference in society, technology, everything around us, everything that is right here, you know, literally in our hands.
Right.
Right. So the difference in the technology that you had at 13 and that your
Hmm.
daughter has now at 13 is huge.
Oh,
Imagine,
yeah.
imagine, if you will, what it was like for me when I was 13, or when Jim was 13, for heaven's sakes.
Y'all must have been bored all the time.
We
But
weren't,
see, y'all
but
probably played outside all the time. Y'all, came up with all these creative games. Now it's hard. A lot of kids don't like to play outside.
right, right.
So, I
Outside
mean,
was, mhm.
that's, it's like a blessing to have our technology, because everything that it can do for us, but it's a curse at the same time. But
Oh,
I mean, I guess that
absolutely.
all comes into how you let it, you know, control your kids, how often you let them, you know, setting
Right.
those boundaries as well.
Right.
So that would come in, that would be important too. But I mean, yeah, just I remember going out, being able to play outside, riding my bike all day around the neighborhood, and now I won't even let my daughter. If I'm not outside, you're not outside in the front yard.
Right.
Like
Right. And and
I,
and
ugh,
that is the curse in today's society,
mm-hmm.
right? That
You
is the
can't have
curse in
that
today's
freedom.
society.
Yeah,
No. We used to take
it's
off in the
crazy.
morning after breakfast. We'd come home for lunch and then we'd be gone until dinner.
Right,
And
right,
and our folks had no idea where in Sam Hill we were. We were
right,
all over, right? We were all over. But usually there was a group of us.
right. Yep, that's how it normally worked, and now it's just like it's unfortunate because it's like I wish, you know, our kids could know
Have
what
that
that was
freedom.
like, you know,
Have that
and
freedom.
it's just right, just to be a kid and have, you know, because as they get older, they want that's what they want freedom, and if they don't feel like that's what they have, they can become, you know, rebellious, or especially if other parents are letting their kids wander the neighborhood or whatever. That's where it's
That's a
like,
tough one.
oh yeah, because it's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about the world we live in today.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
it's I don't know. I
Right.
don't like it. I don't like it.
I know with my youngest, she would want to do a sleepover with a new friend.
Hmm.
And I'd be like, okay, I need to talk to the parent.
Right.
I'd get the eye roll, right? That was first. Mom, I mean, it's fine. Okay. I know her. Okay. I don't,
Right,
baby
right.
girl. I don't know her. I need to talk to the parents. I need to have
Hmm.
a little bit of communication here. Need the phone number, need the obviously the address so I can drop you
Right.
off, etc. But you know, in today's society, that is something that has to be very cognizant of, you know, our young children into their
Hmm.
teens, because unfortunately we hear of it all the time, and to be honest, not often enough, about our children being kidnapped into sexual trafficking.
Right. Because nowadays it's like you can have a phone number, you can have the address, but it's not going to stop anyone from doing whatever they were going to do.
Right. Right. Like you know, I remember my letting my daughter go to uh, all my kids actually go to the mall with
Hmm.
friends. I would be very scared today to let that happen,
Oh my gosh,
right?
malls are like
The worst.
the most, oh yeah, the most common spot
Mhm.
for all
We
these
have a mall
predators and
here
everything.
not very far from where I live that's actually one of the worst in the country for people getting young children getting kidnapped into sexual trafficking.
Yeah, that sounds like the mall that I used to, the one that we would always go to growing up. Now it's, I won't even step foot in that mall because of everything I've heard going on in the parking lots and everything.
Right.
It's awful. And it's crazy because it's like, as the years go on, you know, there's more awareness and everything, but it seems like it just gets worse and worse.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's
And
so
so, you
crazy.
know, it's sad that we live in that state, and for
Hmm.
me it was difficult that we have to make our young children aware of that, as they're, you know, like 13 on up, of what's
Right.
going on into the world. And you know, thankfully when they're into college, they're a little more cognizant of it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't mean that it's that worry stops, because it still happens to college students.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. When they don't even realize it.
Right. Right.
Because I
And
mean, you're at that age where it's like, you know, you think you know everybody, and you know you're not
you're
gonna be.
invincible.
Oh yeah, you don't think anyone's out to get you, you know,
Mhm.
and then it happens, or you know if somebody it happens to, and it's like a harsh reality because yeah, it happens in college. Oh, so often, more often than we know.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, you know, as we talk about our young adults in college or living at home, and it's difficult because I think um, the rules really don't apply, right? Um, I know in my house there were still some certain rules that applied. You
Right.
know, you still needed to kind of let me know like you were going out and kind of where you'd be and about what time you'd be home. Not that, again, it wasn't about the control. It wasn't about, this is your curfew. It was just
Right.
about being polite so that I knew that I could go to bed and say, okay, I kind of know
Right.
what time they're going to be home, yada, yada, yada. And one of the things I always did with my children and all ages, from the
Hmm.
time they were little to the time, they were young adults, is let them know that they could call me anytime for any reason and I would be there. And we
Right.
wouldn't, there would be no, no getting mad over whatever it was. Call me. I don't care if you were at a party and you were maybe drinking and drank too much. Call me. I will come pick you up. We'll talk
Oh
about it in the
yeah.
morning, but there's just your safety is what is most important and the safety of everybody around you.
Oh yeah. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. And
Yeah,
sometimes they can take it as a, a control thing. You just want to control my life, but it's all about safety.
it is. It is. And as your oldest at 13, this the sad reality is, gosh, Mikayla, she's already been introduced to what drugs are,
Oh yeah.
right? She's been
Hmm.
introduced to, understanding what alcohol is, things that aren't what you want for her in her life and are not of your and Ruben's moral family values.
Right. In my eyes, it's you just focus on school and your hobbies that you like, your books you like to write. You focus on that, and let's pretend nothing else exists. But it exists in the world. It's there. She knows.
Right.
We've had those conversations, but it's like, especially when you already have like one, the other is probably bound to hear about it too. So it's like, you have those conversations a little earlier than you would ever think, but they're important to have. I know because they're not always the most comfortable conversations to have. They can be confusing because kids are going to be confused by some things, but yeah. I think when it all hits them about the reality of everything, it's you know
It can be overwhelming.
a harsh awakening. Yeah. Oh yeah, because it's
And
overwhelming as a parent. So to them, I can
mhm,
only imagine.
right. Right. And,
They're probably
and
confused.
also depending on where you live, of course,
Hmm.
makes a huge difference. Not
Right.
that safety, and those boundaries, check-ins. And for me, it wasn't about, um, and I would tell my children, gosh, guys, this isn't about you, having a curfew that you're living at my house and you're an adult. It isn't about that. It's just about a courtesy.
Hmm.
It's just about a courtesy, knowing, who you're out with. So if something were to happen, like to this day, we still have a phone text code that if one of us puts it out, it's an
Hmm.
instant response.
That's awesome. We have something similar. Obviously not with text messages, but I mean, with the older two, when they walk home, not when they walk home, they ride the bus, but if they're outside or if we're anywhere around any kind of people, whether it be the store, an event, whatever the issue may be, um, because with kids, the common thing is, mom told me to come get you, dad told me to come get you, do you want to come
Right.
help me? So we have our secret code, that they would ask for. And if they don't give it, then they know not to go. But I think having like some kind of secret word, and obviously for kids, make it something that they're not going to say all the time, but that's
Right.
easy to remember is,
Right.
oh, so important. So important.
Right.
And I actually read about that a few years ago, and I was like, that's genius. And it was when my daughter was starting kindergarten. And so I think she used it before. And Because I tell her, I'm like, I don't care who's picking you up. I don't care what the situation may be. If they're trying to get you from school, like, I don't care if it's somebody you know. Like, if my mom's picking them up, I'm like, you still ask her just so that we can practice it,
Hmm.
get in the habit of it. Because I mean, maybe I'm just overthinking and I watch way too many shows, but I'm like, just ask anybody. I don't care who they are. If you know them,
Right.
you ask them what the word is, and you go from there.
Right, right. And all three of my children still live in Ohio. And
Mhm,
so, if there's something, that's why we have that text code, that if there's something that's happened, that it's an
mhm.
instant response. That means, everything is dropped right now. And of course, my
Right.
husband knows what it is as well, although he may have forgotten. He
Just
might
have
have
a
forgotten.
practice.
Right, right. What's the secret code? You'll be like,
Yeah.
am I supposed to
What
remember this, Donna?
code? You told me a code?
Right? Huh. Well, what's for dinner, Donna?
That's funny.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I think that having that communication and understanding as our children are older, 18, some children graduate them. Um, Looks like we have a little bit of technical difficulty. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I thought it was just me.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you or me, but
It was like I heard you going in and out, and I was just like, yeah.
uh, um, so that foundation is laid. Like I feel, as a single mom, for example,
Hmm.
my children got a cell phone at quite a young age because
Yeah.
I was working full time and I wanted them to have a phone, so that they could, call 911, call me. I also
Hmm.
had a landline because at that time my youngest was far too young to have a cell phone, and so she went to, and my children were in. It was it was a logistic nightmare, is what it was. They were in three different schools.
Oh, geez.
Right, right. Single mom, three different schools. So do the math with that, right? So my youngest would go to an after school program for like an
Hmm.
hour or so, until the older two would be able to go and get her and walk her home. And the rule was they had to call me at work or on my cell phone every
Hmm.
single day when they all got home.
Right.
And I kept a cell phone up until, um, everybody everybody got cell phones and they were much older, so that in case something happened, they had a landline in which to, call for an emergency.
Hmm.
And so that
I
was
think that's
that
a good
was
idea.
really important. So I think, my point is, I think that by doing that and understanding, that they had to call me to let me know that they were safe, that they were home, et cetera, et cetera, instilled in them. And that's why now when we have that text code, for an emergency, it's just an automatic response because there
Right.
couldn't be any other way when I was working full time and had three young children at three different schools.
Hey, you. I don't know how you did it, but you made it work, and that's how it was. When I was younger, letting my mom know where we were when we got home. Um, of course, now I feel like it's different. A lot of people stay home, so like I'm normally home when our well, I'm always home when our kids get home, but you know I think it's super important, and it does instill into them, and the understanding of letting somebody know where you are, which is major, major, major. And I know nowadays they have, the devices where you can track each other. Um, but I think that extra, where are you going to be? Where are you going? Um, is so, so, so important, to instill even when they're younger. Um, just so they know the importance of it. And, even without having to tell them, everything bad in the world, just it's like you said, it's a courtesy thing, and it's courtesy in general. They don't. It's not like they have to text everyone they know where they are. The courtesy just is important for everybody.
Right. Right. And I think that's what it comes down to. And when we instill that when they're young, it becomes habit when they're become a young adult and
Hmm.
they're working or they're going to school or doing both, that, they have their freedom, of course,
Hmm.
but that it's just that courtesy of, putting our mind at ease. Like, I find it, now this is a hoot. I find it funny. I'll text my children, right?
Hmm.
And I may not get a text back for 2 days, maybe longer. And if I'm busy and they text me, I get a, hey, are you okay? What's going on?
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Okay. I see how it
See how the
works.
roles have changed.
Right. I get how it works now. Mom can't ever be busy. Right. I got to text them
Right.
right back. It's
What are you
kind of funny.
doing? You don't have time? You don't have time to text me back, Mom?
Right. I mean, gosh, I texted you an hour ago, Mom. What's going on?
Right.
So that's kind of funny. But there are so many things that our young adults go through.
Hmm.
They're not done maturing. They're not done.
Hmm.
They're not even done usually physically growing.
Right.
Right out of high school, and so there's that whole thing, and that is, of course, that whole molecular change that we have going on in our bodies, the chemistry in our head, and everything that goes with that. So when we think about that, right,
Hmm.
that they're still, we look at them and they're towering over us or whatever, and they're in school and they're a sophomore in college, and we think, gosh, look at that beautiful young adult that I brought into this world I created. But they're not done growing, they're not done maturing, they're not done, and to be honest, we're never done growing, we're never done
Hmm.
maturing. I look at it like, if I don't learn something new every day, that it's a wasted day.
Right.
Right? So, it can't be, we can't lose sight of the fact that even though they're doing well and they're doing their own thing, that they still have a lot of changes going on in their life.
Hmm. And that's when they're learning. That's when they're, the, um, what's the word? The influences, they're still going to be there. They're not going to go. They're not going to go away.
Right.
That's when they're deciding, whether they're going to go to college, whether they're going to start a family, whether they're going to
Or
move
both.
in with some friends, right? Yeah, both go to school and have kids, or they just happen to, get pregnant and they're in a new situation. So they're learning a lot, because
Hmm.
they go from, going to school every single day, whereas college, you can kind of like pick your schedule, and then they have a lot more freedom. And sometimes they're just kind of like, whoa, it can be overwhelming, all the freedom, because they're like, wait, what do I do?
Right.
Because there's a lot of things that they don't teach you in school. They don't teach you about paying bills, they don't teach you about picking a phone company, or all those little things. And those are the things that they're going to need help with too.
Right. And,
So,
s- and some of them need more structure. Right. So they've
hmm.
gone from high school all the years, from kindergarten through, their senior year in high school, and it's been very structured,
Right.
very, very time oriented, time structured. And now
Hmm.
they get into college, and like you said, they have more freedom. And now sometimes that adjustment period can be absolutely brutal to
Oh
some of
yeah.
our young adults, because now they don't have somebody saying, from this time to this time you're doing this, from this time to this
Right.
time you're doing that. And so, that's something that we need to look at as parents. And some children are great with it, right?
Hmm.
Don't need any help whatsoever. And some of them might need some help.
Right. Because it is a lot having all that freedom, because choosing your class schedule, it's very flexible, because you can work around work and all that good
Right.
stuff. So, when you have all that and you're like, nobody taught me how to do this, or, just, because some people even get kicked out when after they graduate, so then that on top of that, it's kind of all that pressure of what do I do, or if they don't even know what they want to go to college for. I know that's like a really popular one too.
Oh, yeah.
Be their motivation to, you obviously don't want to tell them what they need to be, but, you can sit them down, tell them their strengths, what they like to do,
And,
all that good stuff.
and guide them to resources, right? Guide them
Right.
to resources to find their true passion, their true interest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay if your passion changes.
Right.
That's
Because
something
odds
else.
are it's going to.
Right, right. So, I think the lucky few people in the world knew what they wanted to be from a small age and all the way through their adulthood,
Right.
that they do it. But, there's a lot of us out there who it's changed with time,
Mm-hmm.
because I look at it like this. I am not the same person at 57 next month as I was at 47. And I'm
Right.
certainly not the same person at uh, from every 10 years. And I think we change. I see it every 5 years from basically 20 to 25, 25 to 30 and on up. We
Mm-hmm.
change dramatically. And then as we hit a certain age, usually in my opinion around 45, we realize that you know there's so much stuff that we have carried with us in who we were that we don't need anymore, right? So let the
Mm-hmm.
baggage go. And that
Right.
that's a difficult one, but for me that was a huge eye opener. It was
Mm-hmm.
huge, and I think if we can help our young adults understand that you don't need to carry every piece of baggage that you had with you from a young
Right.
age with you into adulthood, because it's just going to weigh you down.
Mm-hmm.
Let it go. Go talk to somebody, because sometimes those are the things that are holding back our young adults.
Right. It causes them confusion. They don't know what to do. They lose a sense of who they are. Um, yeah, you'd be amazed at all that they carry on to, whether it be, the image of who they think they need to be, or, who society tells them they have to be, or who everyone else is being around them, all those little things
Hmm.
just sit on their shoulder, and they're like going back and forth like the little angels,
Right.
on their shoulders. And yeah, and that's something that they need to realize too, like it's okay to not know what you want to do. I mean, there's like 70-year-olds who change their career. I mean, and they go to college and they're really
Right.
old. Like, it happens. And there's people who freshly out of high school and they spend 4 years and they spend all that money getting a really good degree, and then they're like, they don't even use it. They're like, I don't even want to do that anymore.
Right.
It's okay. It's okay to change it up. It's expensive, but like it's okay. It's not the end of the world, because like you said, we all change and there's nothing wrong with that. It's
Right.
okay to not know, because it's really not knowing who you are, because you know who you are, but it's kind of deciding like what path you're going to take in life, because
Mhm.
you can like to do this and you can like to do something else, but deciding which way you want to go is the hard part.
Right, right, right. And that's why so many times, my dad was a psychologist at ASU,
Mm-hmm.
and he was tenured, and he would always say to us, you go to community college. He said, and get a feel for what you want to do. And
Oh yeah.
we all had a free ride at ASU. And of course, none
Mm-hmm.
of us took it. Thank you very much. But,
What?
right? Yeah. Yeah, that was not a proud dad moment, let me
That
tell
is
you.
funny.
Oh, he was mad. Let's just put it that way.
He's like,
He
what's
was
wrong with my school?
right. What is wrong with getting an education at ASU for free? I think
Right?
all we had to pay
That
for
is
would have been
funny.
books, right? So, but he would say, it can be very overwhelming, going from,
Mhm.
a high school class of, we'll say 20 kids, 25,
Right.
to a lecture hall of three, four, 500. It's
Mhm.
overwhelming. And so, one of the things he always said was, take a couple classes at the community college. Get your, especially if you're paying your way through school
Yeah.
and your folks are helping or what have you, get the basics at the community college and get into the habits that you need to get into for the foundation of
Mhm.
going on to getting really concentrating on your degree. Because, at
Right.
community college level, your reading, writing, arithmetic, if you will, they all
Mhm.
transfer, right? So many of
Right.
the things for your 2 year degree are going to transfer over to,
Over. Mhm.
to a college. And he always said that it would make the transition usually a lot easier. And then, of course, there's those who just could go right in one, two, three, and do it. But
Right.
you know, and there's so many out there. There's so many out there to choose from. I know my stepdaughter uh, goes to one of the Christian colleges here and
Mhm.
lives on campus and absolutely loves it.
Mhm.
It's an incredibly good college, um, but she likes it because it's a Christian college. It doesn't have some of uh, the sororities and the fraternities of party,
Right.
party, party, right? It's
Right.
all about, because obviously ASU is a college party town. I mean, no two ways about it. It is a college party town. And so
Right.
she loves that it's about studying, and that there's not the crazy parties going on, and living in campus is a little safer, if you will.
Oh
It's a little
yeah.
safer for her. And she's doing great things. She's studying to be a psychologist. And how'd that happen? I mean, it was done in
That's
a blink of an eye. But so there's a lot of things out there that we need to step back and consider with our children.
of
A lot of
course.
things.
Oh yeah. And it just, you know, them getting older never your job never stops of, being there for them and guiding them and even when they're in college and even when you think your child has it all figured out because they're doing fantastic 4.0, they got the best job,
Right,
like they're still learning, and it's even good to, because not all kids are gonna go to their parents and be like, hey, I'm figuring this out in life,
right.
so just checking in on them and having that communication is important to
Yes,
have with them.
it is. Um, I marvel watching my two children who are in school right now. I marvel watching, what they're learning. My one daughter is studying, I don't even know the technical terminology, but coding on computers.
Oh wow.
Okay.
That sounds
Uh,
confusing.
yeah, it is. I'm looking at her screen when all my children are out here. She came out early for our celebration of marriage. And I'm looking at her computer screen, and I'm like, wow, I think I already have a headache. You know?
What am I reading?
And she is so smart. She's so unbelievably smart. She's like, oh, wow, this is just this, and this is just this, but I'm having trouble with this. And I'm like, okay, where is it? She's like, oh, it's right here, Mom. And I'm like, okay, that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I just want to know that it works. But, I mean, that is an incredibly great career path for her, because she can literally just about write her own ticket working from home once this is done,
Yeah. Right.
right? Because, two fields that we know will never ever go away: medical field and technology.
Right.
right? Those two will never go away. And that is literally all forms of the medical field and all forms from, A to Z in both fields. Those are just going to
Right.
continue to grow.
Hmm. Of course. Oh my gosh. I can't even. When people say they're doing coding, I'm just like, how do you understand? I mean, all those numbers, letters, and it just keeps going on the screen. And I'm like,
Right?
I get confused when my computer restarts and it has these like, what does that mean?
I,
Oh my gosh. It's like a secret code.
right? It
That's
is. It is.
amazing. That's
It is.
amazing.
It's very confusing to me, and I'm not the most computer literate person in the world. So,
Me.
it's not uncommon for me or my husband to call his oldest son, who is just brilliant with computers and understands them and can do all these things and walk us through stuff or questions that we have, or when we get
Hmm.
together, we'll bring our computers like old people and go, "Hey, dude, can you
What
help
is
me?
this?
Can you help me with this?" And
And
then,
they're just like, it's an easy fix.
right?
That's all
And
you had to do.
exactly. And we always say, okay, don't laugh at us because, our generation's the one that taught you to eat with a spoon. Okay.
The basic thing that you do every day.
Right. Right. That's because of us right here. Right. So,
Don't forget.
right. And not everybody and that's the other thing. Not everybody's going to go to college. Right.
Right.
Maybe
And
they
that's
just need
okay.
time to, get a full-time job, work from home, or, live at home, save their money because they want to buy, you know, a condo or a house or whatever. But whatever that looks like, it's so important to be there and support our children in and set them up for success.
Right. And make don't pressure them too much to where, it adds on to the pressure that they probably already feel, because that's really important. And
Right.
don't force them to go to college. It's okay to not go. They can still have a good life without it. It's not a necessity in life. There's plenty of
Right.
people who don't go. And, a lot of people beat themselves up about it, for not going or not having an interest in going, because not everyone wants to continue school after doing it for almost years of their life, their whole
Right.
life, almost at that point. So, that's okay too. And don't put all the added pressure on them, because, odds are a lot of parents, because I really wasn't interested in college. I'm in college now, but I still don't have an interest for it. I mean,
Right.
I just take some classes here and there, but it's nothing, as a parent, I'd want to force my kids to do, because if you end up forcing them, then they end up failing, their classes, then,
That it
what's
makes them
that
feel
doing to
bad.
them?
Right.
Hmm.
And I look back and I took it. I took it.
Hmm.
Said, I'm also not here beating myself up for it every day.
Right.
It is what it is, right? It happened. Life goes on. I've had a beautiful life. And you know what? I continue to have a beautiful life because I'm
Right.
creating the life I want. I'm
Right.
creating the beautiful things I want to see in my life.
And you're in control of it all. I love the word create,
Absolutely.
because that's what
Absolutely.
it's all about. That's
Hmm.
that's what life is. You're creating the life that you live, and your future.
Absolutely. And so, and that's the other thing. It's important to let them live their life.
Hmm.
It may
They're
not
all,
be
yeah.
right, my cup of tea, your cup of tea, whatever, but just supporting them behind it. And I know, one of my children recently came to me and said, Mom, what do you think? I said, I think you should go for it. I think you should absolutely do this hands down. If you don't, I
Hmm.
think you're going to regret it.
Right.
And the answer was, you're right, I will. I said, then go for it. And I said, and then give it 1,000% everything you've got.
Hmm.
You know,
And it's funny. That's funny, because sometimes they already, they know they want to do something, but they want the reassurance that they should, because
right,
they have that that little doubt of maybe I can't, maybe I shouldn't, but it's even if it's something that they really want to do, they're probably going to go and ask, should I do this? Because I mean,
Right.
at the end of the day, they're going to see you as their biggest supporter. And, the last thing you want to do is be like, no, I think you're going to fail at it.
Yeah,
Like,
whatever.
yeah.
Right. Life is full of too much negativity. So,
Mm-hmm.
let's throw that out the board. So,
Right.
we are really almost out of time, but Mikayla, I think this has been such a fun week, talking about motivating ourselves and others. But I think tomorrow is going to be one of my favorite shows.
I was going to say that because tomorrow's is like super, super important, when you're in a relationship, and
Hmm.
it can affect, because everything you do with your spouse, it affects your kids, and, they see that too.
Hmm. And whether you have kids at home or not, like, we don't have kids at home, but that still needs to be there. So tomorrow is
Oh, yeah.
going all about, focusing on motivating each yourself and your partners in life. And so we are super excited to be talking about that tomorrow, folks. So we thank you, on behalf of Mikayla, myself, I want to thank each and every one of you wherever you are, whatever platform you've joined us here today. We appreciate each and every one of you, knowing that, your time could be spent anywhere, but you chose to spend it with us. And we truly hope that we've touched one person and helped them in their time of need, because at the end of the day, that's what we are all about here on this show, is helping just one person. So we thank you. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same channel. Have a blessed day, y'all.
Bye.